Welcome to the Personal Injury Marketing Minute, where we quickly cover the hot topics in the legal marketing world. I'm your host, Lindsay Busfield. Between SEO, PPC, LSA, GBP, and all of the other marketing acronyms, there are a ton of marketing strategies for law firms. Sometimes it feels like you are crushing it. Other times it feels like you're drowning and not seeing any return on your marketing spend. But if you can cut some of the mistakes off at the pass, you might be able to avoid some of the pitfalls that many lawyers fall into. Allison Williams, founder of Williams Law Group and international business coach, joins us today to discuss what law firms are getting wrong about their law firm marketing strategies. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Lindsay. I'm excited to dive into today's conversation.
Absolutely. Well, let's kick it off by telling me a bit about your law firm and how you help other law firms grow.
Sure. So Williams Law Group is my baby. I started it in many moons ago. And I say that because even though I have the year of incorporation, it feels like it was decades ago because I kind of started off with a bang. You know, I left my employer, started a law firm, kind of like a lot of lawyers said, okay, I got a little book of business. I'm going to go do this thing. And very quickly realized that growing a law firm had little to nothing to do with being a good lawyer. Yes, being a good lawyer gets you good clients, but more is needed than just generating clients. And I very quickly was run over by the overwhelming demands of growing a law firm. So I kind of had a come to Jesus moment where I just kind of, all the work landed on me very quickly. And I started working more and more 60, 70, 80, 90 hours a week, and fell asleep driving one day and almost had a near-death accident. So thank God that did not happen. You know, that saying, Jesus takes the wheel. That was definitely my experience because I don't have any recollection of changing my course and just kind of woke up and all of a sudden my car was skidding in the other direction.
Oh, no.
So realized working harder is not working. Had to go
Yes.
figure things out and very quickly realized that if I was going to get all this work done, I had to create a system. And that's how I functioned in the practice of law, it's how I functioned in the business of law, and got myself together, started crushing chaos in business, creating systems, and grew my law firm into a multi-seven-figure company in about 3.5 years. And from that experience, I started helping other lawyers just intuitively. People would ask me questions and, you know, how do you do this and how do you do that? And I started to see a movement of lawyers on social media talking and connecting around business and realized that what a lot of people wanted was the answer to how each individual did it. But what I found was that there were some very systemic, patterns for how lawyers that grew profitably and grew successfully and grew quickly could optimize their business. So I was giving not just here's what I anecdotally did. I was giving the experience that I found through looking at kind of the complex of what people did. So 2018, I started Law Firm Mentor. It's now an international coaching company. And we help lawyers around the world with growing their law firms in a sustainable way and crushing chaos in the process so it doesn't run you over as you are growing.
Well, and that's a great point because we come on, at least I come on this podcast and talk a lot about specific marketing strategies and what is working in one market isn't going to work in every market. So having those individual practices of here's the one surefire thing that's going to help you grow your law firm is probably not the actual one surefire thing that's going to help you grow your law firm in terms of the practical strategy, but being able to recognize the patterns and the intentionality and the systems that are put into place and all of these things that as a broader category are going to help you grow. And this is true whether you're actually sitting down and practicing law and working your case or developing business strategies or developing internal concepts to manage your HR process. So all of these different processes. So looking at the broader scale of these is a great thing to dive into. So before we get into what isn't working, what is working in terms of marketing strategies? What are the tools for success there?
Yeah, so there's lots of things that work. I mean, the first thing I always talk about is the mindset of marketing, and that's true no matter what your practice area, whether you're a personal injury attorney or you practice in some other area. So, the first thing you have to keep in mind is that marketing is not something that you can do when you have time. It is something that you have to institutionalize as a practice. The same way that you cannot make a practicing law of getting around to putting your deadlines on your calendar, right? It's baked into the core of what we learn. Like if you miss a statute of limitations, you're in the world of malpractice, right? So I want you to think about it as business malpractice if you are not in a state of marketing all the time. So the question becomes, how do you do that, right? Because you got other things to do. And it doesn't take anywhere near as much as it once did, especially now that we have the advent of AI, the fact that we have marketing companies that can institutionalize some things for us. They can write content for us. They can help us with building out SEO building out SEO strategy through the ways in which we exist online. A lot of things can be done for you, but you have to recognize that you can't turn it on when you have time and turn it off. So once you get past the marketing, the mindset of it, it becomes the how. And different practice areas are going to have different strategies that are successful. But the one thing that I think we all recognize is now today, you cannot live and grow a business without existing online and having a very strong digital imprint. So what we really help lawyers to do is create omnipresence in their marketing. That really just means being everywhere all the time without physically having to be everywhere all the time. So how do you do that? Well, every piece of content should be multi-purposed. You don't ever create a piece of content with the idea that I'm creating this one blog post or this one video. I always tell people, if you're teaching a CLE somewhere, you're recording it. Then you have an audio transcript, you have a video transcript. You're clipping that content into talkable pieces so that you have multiple clips from that one video. You're taking the sound bites from that and you're embedding it into social media posts. And you can get anywhere from 10 to 20 social media posts from 5 minutes of content. You're not talking about having to do hours of teaching. You're literally talking about just doing what you normally do. If you lawyer, you know how to tell someone how to start a case, how to end a case, how to negotiate a case, how to value a case, right? You're going to be talking about those things in little sound bites, and you're going to snip them and use them in lots of places. And that is now easier than ever with a lot of the tools that are out online that are very affordable. Like Descript is one of my personal favorites, right? You take a video, you upload it there. It will tell you what are the clippable pieces. It will tell you what is a complete sentence, a complete thought from something you've already said. It will allow you to be able to shortcut that content and then mass produce it in lots of places and use it on your video platforms and on your image only platforms. So you have a lot of opportunity now that's very, very affordable for you to be able to create the omnipresence online that everyone needs.
Well, and I love that you bring that up because one of the big questions that we're getting from a lot of lawyers is how do I optimize for AI? Because everybody wants to be showing up in the AI snippets and be getting onto those lists of the best XYZ lawyer in XYZ city. And the big thing is that if you are doing your SEO right already, then you are going to be optimized for AI. But part of doing your SEO right is creating that digital footprint in multiple different capacities. One is having the written content on your website, yes, but also having video content and transcripts that are in different places and different short form, long form video content. But it doesn't have to take hours. If you talk for 5 to 10 minutes, you will have a wealth of video content that you can repurpose and republish on different platforms. So I love that. And I love the tool that you just mentioned. We'll make sure to put a link to that and any other resources that you have that are great for repurposing content and making lawyers' lives easier. So let's get into what are some of the mistakes that you're seeing lawyers make?
Oh God. Well, the mistake, of course, goes back to the two things that I just talked about. So the first is the mindset, right? I'll do it when I get around to it. That's the number one mistake that I see from our 8-figure clients all the way down to the kickstarts, right? If you are growing a business, you absolutely have to have your marketing on all the time. And that is not something you can set and forget. So that's number one. But the next one that I see is probably the worst. And you kind of referenced it a little bit earlier in asking the question, kind of like, everything's not going to work in every market. people are very clear and very quick to ask others around them, hey, what are you doing that's working? And then they think that just because they heard a strategy that it should work for them because they're in the same practice area. So if you're practicing PI in Minnesota and you ask another PI attorney in Minnesota, assuming that that person is not going to derail you because they're actually a competitor, you're probably not going to get an answer that you can automatically apply in your industry. You might get some tidbits and you might have to, use that strategy in some iterative form, but you're not going to be able to copy and paste. And the reason is that one of the things that's central in marketing, especially marketing professional services, is that you're marketing a person. And that person has an energy, it has a personality, it has a look, it has a feel, has a level of confidence. And the fact that somebody else is able to show up on video and dazzle and get a lot of viral views does not mean that you're going to be able to. That doesn't make you bad or wrong, it just makes you different. So you have to think about who you are and how you show up. And some people's tenacity, some people's trial skill comes through in how they communicate on screen. Other people, not so much. And if that's not you, that's okay. There are other ways to get you marketable, but just doing what somebody else is doing is almost never going to get you the same result.
And one of the big first steps in being able to do that is to really know yourself and understand yourself in relation to your target market and your target demographic. So can you walk us through maybe some suggestions on how to figure out what makes you unique, especially in ways that will resonate with the people and prospective clients that you're trying to attract?
Sure. So, I mean, the first thing I will always say about that is to start with what you want, right? Because a lot of times people think that they are eligible for their ideal client when they're really not. So before you start getting self-critical, you should identify who your ideal client avatar is. And we actually have a resource for that. You can get it at lawfirmmentor.net/avatar, which is a worksheet that actually walks you through how you identify your ideal client. And that person, you have to know their demographics, their geographics, and their psychographics, right? So demographics, pretty easy. The stuff on the outside, the stuff we can see, your race, your gender, your age, your marital status, your household income. But geographics, a lot of times people think of, well, are they in the region of the law firm? And that may or may not be true, especially if you have a national practice. So you're actually talking about with geographics, where can you find the people? And finding the people typically comes from the third category, which is psychographics. And the psychographics are the part that most people don't spend enough time on, which is, how does this person tick? Is this person a staunch conservative who spends their time on the weekends hunting? Do they spend their time in political rallies? Are they somebody that's in church every Sunday? Or are you talking about somebody who is, America's Next Top hippie, right? They love to, hug trees on the weekend, and they're spending their time at the Rotary, and they're trying to, be the best benefactor or fundraising chief for their communal organization. There's not right or wrong here. It's just, who is the person that you're trying to get to? And once you understand how that person ticks, then you can figure out where they are, right? Are they going to be at the PTA meeting every other week, or are they going to be somebody that is most likely engaged in a lot of leisure activity? Are they very active? Are they physical? Are they people that love to be out and about? Or are they people that are more homebodies, right? So you have to think about that. Once you identify who that person is, you have to think about what it is in you that resonates with that person. Like, i.e., why do you want that person as the client? Everybody wants the clients who can pay the bills, right? Or the clients that are going to give you the settlements that are going to pay your bills. But functionally, you have to think about, why do I like this type of person more than another type of person? Again, no judgment, no right or wrong, but just the why. When you figure out the why, there are going to be some commonalities between you and the people you want to serve. Oftentimes these are the people that I grew up with, the people that I communicate with the easiest, the people that I have the most in common with, the people who are politically aligned with me, the people who might have the same household status as me, right? If I'm a parent, if I'm married or divorced, right, I would most align with people that fit into that category. And so once you identify with that, then you have to lean into that part of yourself when you are speaking about the people that you serve. So if you're a family person, don't shy away from that. That doesn't mean that a person who's not a family person won't hire you, but it means that the thing about you that is easiest for you are the things that are your natural attributes. You don't have to work at it, right? You don't have to muster up a script for it. It's just who you are. Showing up as who you are is going to attract the people that are most drawn to who you are. That's the easy part of marketing. And I think far too much people try to manufacture a version of themselves that they think is marketable when just being the person that you are is the easiest way.
It really is. And I love that you say that. I love that you are able to cluster people into different types of demographics and the different psychologies and pieces that resonate with a particular lawyer and being able to market to that. And just because you are marketing towards one demographic doesn't mean that you can't market towards multiple demographics, because a lot of the lawyers that we work with are saying, I want the catastrophic accidents. I want the truck accidents. And that really could happen to any demographic, to any population, to any location. But you can create individual marketing campaigns that speak to different population segments. So finding what it is that resonates between you and a certain population segment can be one marketing activity that you can replicate for different segments if you're wanting to attract that larger population. So just because you're going through this exercise doesn't mean that you are excluding the wider marketing segment, but it means that you might have to be more intentional with the different campaigns that you're building to work towards each particular subset.
Yeah, 1000%. I'm glad you said that because I think that a lot of people do think that if I nail down who I want, like what type of cases I want, what type of issues I want to handle, that I'm excluding others. And like you said, like once you get to a certain level, like if you're starting out, if you're, under $500,000, we highly recommend that you focus in an area because niching will get you there faster. It gets you more revenue. But once you have a certain amount of revenue under your belt, then the next thing to do is actually to create individual landing pages that will draw people to the message that fits them. So you can very easily productize your message, right? Your message today for this type of person fits landing page number one. But when you're going to a different demographic, when you're talking about a different type of injury, when you're talking to people that are coming in through different sources, you can absolutely customize that for who you're talking to.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that that is a marketing strategy that can keep you busy for years to come and can speak to any different marketing tools that you're wanting to try that work well for your particular geographic area. So whether you are doing SEO and creating website landing pages, or you're creating billboards in certain geographic regions, having a different strategy based on the type of marketing that you're doing and the location that you're doing it in is going to yield a much better ROI for your marketing spend. So,
Yeah.
Allison, what is one thing that our listeners can do today that you think will help them grow their firms long term?
So the first thing I would say, I mean, to anyone that wants to grow their firm long term, I think you have to start with figuring out your strategy. That's the number one thing. And I think far too often we just kind of start blitz ringing and putting out everything that we can and seeing what sticks. Far more often, we recommend when lawyers come into us, they are usually overspending on marketing because they're just kind of throwing money at the problem and seeing what they can achieve. If you pull back a little bit and draw upon a strategy first, you're going to get a better outcome. And the best way of doing that is consulting with a partner, figuring out who you want to work with in marketing, and then figuring out what is the best strategy. And before you just adopt any strategy that's given to you, it should be data focused. So it's really important to actually know what you are currently doing. Even if you're doing a sloppy half-assed job at it, you have to know where am I actually getting traction? So I don't pull the plug on something that's already working to go try the sexy new thing. And then your strategy has to be informed by a budget. Don't ever just start with, I think I'm going to just give $10,000 over to this because that's what I have. Start with what is reasonable based on what can be achieved in your market. And a lot of that is going to deal with the saturation in your market. How many keywords are you going to start with and what is the price going to be, especially if you're doing things online with paid search. So it's going to be important to figure that out before you start spending. Then figure out a budget and actually tweak that regularly. You should be in constant communication about what are the results you're getting from your marketing spend so that you know every time I'm spending a dollar here, my projected ROI is X. And if we don't hit that, if we either blow it through the water, which is great, right? We always love getting more for less, or if we're underperforming, at least we have some data to tell us where we should be making modifications and we're not just blowing through dollars without any type of plan.
Right. In an ideal attribution model, you'd be able to track your dollar to where the lead is coming from, how many leads are converting, and the type of cases from each converted lead from each starting point from your marketing campaigns. So the more that you can, more data that you can build into your attribution model, the better. And you're going to have a much better result on the long end, pouring more money into what's working as opposed to chasing your tail on the new, latest, greatest, sexy thing and not necessarily seeing what pays off in the end. Well, thank
Yeah.
you so much, Allison. Yeah.
I was just going to say, and that's on both sides, right? So, of course, your marketing company is going to be, putting in code so that ultimately they can track what's happening online. But you, as the business owner, have to be very intentional about the data that you collect inside. That means you absolutely have to be tracking where your sources are coming from. We recommend things like call rail so you can actually make sure that when you are paying for ads, ultimately where those leads coming from. Don't just rely on people when they call in and they ask, you ask them, where did you come from? Google. Um, well, yes, and there's more to it than that, right? So you just have to get sophisticated about that. And we talk a lot about that in our book that's coming out in March that's called Crushing Chaos, the Law Firm Owner's Guide to More Money, More Free Time, and Less Stress. So definitely want to pick up a copy of that so you can learn a little bit more about how to actually get into the nitty gritty of that.
And where can we pick up a copy of Crushing Chaos?
Well, the first thing I would tell people is check out our website, lawfirmmentor.net, because there we're going to actually have a landing page set up specifically for the book. So you can actually get an early release copy of it. We're going to have a big launch campaign around that next year. But absolutely come to our website. There's a lot of resources there, a lot of free resources, including information about our podcast and about the book. So you can find out a lot of information there.
And where can people go to directly get in touch with you? Also through the website?
Yeah. If you're interested in learning more about Law Firm Mentor as a company, of course, we recommend you go to our website, lawfirmmentor.net. We're on all the socials. You can find us at Law Firm Mentor on, of course, every platform. But then in addition to that, if you want to book a call and just have a free growth strategy conversation where we actually talk to you about what is and is not working in your business. And this is a sales conversation, but it doesn't become a sales conversation until we know what, if anything, you need to tweak. And we give you that information absolutely free. So you can absolutely just book a call directly on the website.
What a great resource. Well, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your insights.
Well, thank you for having me, Lindsay. This was great.